What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I'm bringing you a deck that I've been wanting to do for a while in Expanded, and that is a deck centered around Darkrai-GX in Turbo Darkrai. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton and lets us do more cool stuff for you guys. And as for the question of the day, I was really kind of struggling with a question of the day, but then I realized I was just looking at Darkrai-GX for a little while and realized that Dead End GX really doesn't have much of a place in the standard metagame. Like, if you threw Darkrai-GX into Turbo Darkrai in Standard, you really cannot use Dead End GX much at all unless you tailor the deck specifically to it by running things like Salazzle or something to that effect. So essentially, Darkrai has a relatively dead GX attack in the standard format unless you obviously tailor your deck towards that. So that got me thinking, why is this so good in Expanded? Well, that's because of Hypnotoxic Laser being able to immediately status your opponent with an item card. And I got to thinking, well, what if that was in the standard format? So my question of the day is, what do you guys think about an item in the standard format that could status your opponent? Now, it doesn't have to be exactly Hypnotoxic Laser with the poison and the potential for sleep. It could be like poison and burn, burn and something else. I mean, it could be any number of things. But what do you think of an item card that would allow you to status your opponent? I think that that actually could be... Okay, so it could actually be really good for the meta. Like, it could be a very cool card, but it would have to be done correctly. It couldn't be an overpowered card where where it's like, yeah, your opponent's now paralyzed. No, it can't be ridiculously overpowered. It would have to be just enough that, like, your opponent is now burnt or your opponent is now poisoned. I mean, Hypnotoxic Laser, I think, could be reprinted in Standard and be just fine. But if you took off the sleep, it would essentially kind of be the same thing, but just to, like, leave some status on your opponent. I think that could be really cool, but also you'd have to be careful because that'd be another item that Garbodor could punish you for using. So I think if done correctly, it could have a positive impact on the meta. However, overall, I think that for the time being, I mean, Pokemon has a history of when they try to do something, they just kind of power creep the heck out of everything. So yeah, for the time being, I'm okay with out of it, but what do you guys think about having an item in the standard format that would cause status? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. But anyway, on to the deck. Like I said, this is just my Turbo Darkrai expanded deck that I love so much. I mean, it's my favorite deck of all time to use, and I just added in a Darkrai-GX and a couple Guzma. And you might be looking and be like, wait, doesn't that just kind of... I mean, you literally just added one Darkrai and two Guzma. This is really hardly a Burning Shadows deck. And on paper, you are correct. However, in practice, this actually changes how the deck plays and how the deck works so much. It's actually really kind of cool. Because what Darkrai-GX does, well, first of all, you can continually recycle it. By discarding it, you can just restore it and put a darkness energy on there. So immediately that's a free dark patch. Just a free dark patch by having Darkrai and a darkness energy in the discard pile. So immediately that's helping Darkrai-EX. Now another thing, if our opponent builds up a big attacker, knocks out our Mon that has the most energy on it, normally we would be in just an absolutely atrocious spot. We would have nothing that we could really do. But with Darkrai-GX, just having 3 energy on it, and if we laser something, it's like, okay, this thing is a problem. I'm just going to one-shot that thing. Like, I'm just going to straight up knock it out. I'm going to laser it, and I'm going to knock it out. That's actually incredible for this deck. If we run up against something that's actually really bulky, might not get knocked out in one hit, and then can knock out 2 Darkrai in the process, Darkrai-GX is literally just a delete a Pokemon button. And also, I mean, this helps out with safeguard Pokemon like Carbink, Suicune, those types of things. It's a non-Lele that we can use to hit them. I mean, Lele still technically worked for that, but Darkrai-GX is a darkness Pokemon that we can throw Dark Patch and Max Elixir onto. It's not committing resources to something that we probably won't use, it's committing resources to something that we would use anyway, and that helps out immensely. Unfortunately, this does not help out with, in my opinion, Turbo Darkrai's worst matchup against Primal Groudon, as Primal Groudon is not affected by Hypnotoxic Laser, but you know what? The combination of these two is actually still incredibly powerful. So now I'm just going to go through the Mons one by one and tell you, just explain them from the start. One Shaymin, just for extra setup, this deck really likes turn 1 Explosion. However, at the same time, it doesn't always need it, so that's why one Shaymin is there. That way, if it's prized, it's not the end of the world, but we still want to have it more often than not. 2-2 of Darkrai-EXs, you can change this to 3-1, but in my opinion, running 2-2 is necessary because of all the Night Marchers that you run up in the expanded format, and also Dark Cloak is absolutely, well, it's not absolutely necessary, it's just mostly necessary, so being able to have Free Retreat and then Night Spear, like I said, for the Night Marchers, and then Dark Pulse for just hitting for a bunch of damage. That's really what this whole deck is centered around. Only a single copy of Darkrai-GX just because we can keep recurring it with Restoration. All we need to do is just get it in the discard pile, and boom, we have it for the rest of the game. One Yveltal-EX to help with fighting matchups, just kind of spread around the weakness, not have all our attackers weak to fighting. Yveltal is weak to lightning and actually has a resistance to fighting, so that helps out quite a bit. One Hoopa to search out our Darkrai's and Shaymin. One Lele, just because Lele is pretty amazing and can grab us any one supporter that we want. One Keldeo for rush in and retreat, get out of paralysis, sleep, all those nasty conditions that are in the expanded format. 3 Battle Compressor to put, to put supporters in the discard pile so that we can activate VS Seeker, put Darkness in the discard pile so that we can activate Dark Patch, then also put Darkrai-GX in the discard pile so that we can have that for restoration whenever we want it. So Battle Compressor just gets this deck, well, because of Darkrai-GX, Battle Compressor gets a lot better in this deck because not only does it activate cards that you can draw later, Battle Compressor essentially turns into a Mon on the bench with a Darkness energy. That's how strong Battle Compressor plus Restoration is. One Computer Search as the ace-spec of choice because, this deck, once that turn 1 explosion, you're really not playing too much for the long game in this deck, so you want to explode as fast and as often as you can. 4 Dark Patch and 4 Max Elixir, just flood the field with energy as soon as possible. 1 Escape Rope to act as kind of a pseudo, well, actually just kind of act as a Guzma, but you're not able to pick the Pokemon that your opponent brings out. But in some cases, if they only have one thing on the bench, then, it's essentially Guzma. 1 Field Blower, shut off Garbotoxin mainly, and also get rid of annoying things like Choice Band and Fighting Fury Belt that could leave us in a situation where we wouldn't be able to get a knockout. 2 of Hypnotoxic Laser and Virbank, running more Laser than Bank. First of all, because our opponent simply needs to be poisoned in order for Darkrai-GX to be able to dead-end GX them. But also, Laser works without Virbank. Virbank does not work without Laser in this deck, so that's why we're running more of these. 4 Ultra Ball to guarantee get what we want when we want, and also in this deck, the discard part of Ultra Ball is not the worst thing in the world because it actually puts things like Darkness Energy, Darkrai-GX, supporters in the discard pile so that we can use those later. 4 VS Seeker, let us reuse all of our supporters. And then as for these supporters, 3-2 of N and Juniper, running a little bit lower line of draw support just because there's so many different things that I wanted to fit in this deck that I just kind of put these guys a little bit lower. 1 Hex Maniac to shut off abilities, just basically against item lock is kind of what I'm going for. Shut off item lock so that we can use our items, and really against the big item lock, Vileplume is going to be gone because Force to Giant Plants is getting the boot. But still, Trevenant is incredibly annoying. If we can just get one turn of items against Trevenant and we time our Hex Maniac correctly, that sets us up for the rest of the game to where we just blow through them because of weakness. So Hex Maniac, 100% necessary and nice in this deck. And then Guzma over Lysander because this deck has free retreat thanks to Dark Cloak and the Darkness Energy. So having Guzma switch our own Pokemon out is not something that hurts us. So Guzma over Lysander definitely, and also to get out of status conditions if we don't have Keldeo in there. 2/2 of Choice Band and Fighting Fury Belt. Choice Band to boost the damage output, Fighting Fury Belt to give longevity to our attackers and boost the damage output by a little bit, and then 11 Darkness Energy, so that statistically speaking we should be able to hit Max Elixir whenever we play it. So yeah, that's the deck. Let's just go ahead and see it in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Luis Fianza, or I could just try to be as Yankee as possible and go Fianca. Luis Fianca, or Luis Fianza. I don't even know which one it is. I mean, it could just as easily be Luis Fianca as Luis Fianza, knowing, I don't know. I'm just saying stuff at this point. So I start off with an interesting hand. Well, I mean, it looks like we're up against, we're obviously up against a fire deck. I mean, we see Rare Candy, we see EXP Share and Evo Soda, so I'm thinking that this might not be the most competitive deck in the world. But I mean, either way, I could very well be wrong, but I'm just thinking that there's no like competitive fire deck right now that runs a stage 2. I mean, obviously Volcanion is a very, very competitive fire deck, but this is obviously not a Volcanion deck, just because, I mean, you know, we'd see a lot different stuff than Volcanion. And okay, so this is an Incineroar deck. That was kind of what I was thinking. I mean, admittedly, I only was thinking that based on the Litten coin. So I mean, it could be interesting. This could actually be a very interesting matchup, but honestly, like, I don't think that this will be overly competitive. Now, my hand is actually pretty nice, especially since I got that Juniper with that mulligan, because this means I can Battle Compressor, get rid of another supporter that I would want to use later, in addition to a Darkrai and a Darkness, the Darkrai-GX and the Darkness Energy. So I think... Oh, I even get Guzma, so that's even better. That was another one that I was wanting to throw in the discard pile. So let's immediately throw Darkrai-GX in there. Obviously an Energy, and then I think Hex Maniac. Yeah, because I really don't think I'm going to need Hex Maniac this game, so even the fact that I'm getting rid of 2 VS Seekers at this point isn't too huge of a deal. And yeah, I am going to have to Juniper. I would have grabbed an N if my opponent had a good hand, but unfortunately he does not. And, okay. So what I can actually do right here, I got a handful of nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and Restoration, bring up my Darkrai-GX and an Energy. Let's Dark Patch onto this sucker. And then if I can hit one of my 2 Max Elixirs, I will actually be able to attack with Darkrai-GX. Well, if I could get my Darkrai out of the active spot. And what I'm actually going to do, hold on to this Max Elixir, because... I mean, I don't need Darkrai-GX to have 4 energy on it. This way, if my opponent ends me or I draw into another basic or something like that, I can just Max Elixir onto that thing. That way, at least the energy isn't just straight up an extra energy on something. My opponent is going to go ahead and Sycamore, and man, apparently we're both drawing dead. So, I mean, at the very least, I have an attack up. Like, I have... Yeah, I can hit for 130 damage. I think that's... Yeah, just enough to knock out Oranguru and take a prize. So, I mean, even though I'm kind of drawing dead at this point, I have everything I need. Like, I'm hitting for 130 damage. I have a Darkrai-EX fully set up. I have a Darkrai-GX on the bench that's fully set up as well. And this one Darkrai-GX, even if it gets knocked out, I can continually recycle it just by using Restoration. Just like, okay, you knocked it out, well, it's back on the bench, and so is 1 energy. So, I mean, that's kind of a... cool thing about Darkrai-GX. You don't need to run a lot of them to get good use out of it. I just wish its GX attack was more relevant to standard, because, I mean, unless you pair it with, like, Salazzle or something like that, you're not going to get too much use out of its GX attack. Now, in expanded format, you run Laser Bank, and you literally are just like, well, that thing's a problem, I'm just going to delete it by hitting it with a Hypnotoxic Laser and then knocking it out with my GX attack, no matter how much HP it has. So, my opponent gets a Lele and a Lysander. Is he going to try... I mean, he's going to Lysander in my... Oh, okay, he's going to play Teammates. He's going to grab probably Rare Candy, Incineroar, I would think. Actually, if you were going to grab Rare Candy, Incineroar, I think with Lele, with the energy that he played on Lele, if he played that onto the Litten... he would have been able to knock out. He would have been able to knock out my Darkrai with Incineroar's GX attack. So he is just going to go into his Tauros, and here we go. I get another Darkrai. So what I'm going to do, play the energy onto this Darkrai, see if I can hit Max Elixir, because if I hit Max Elixir, I'm still 10 short. So, okay, whiff it, not too huge of a deal. What I think I'm going to do, yeah, there's only 6 on board, crap. So I'm only going to be doing 150. You know what? If he knocks me out, he loses his GX attack, which is something I don't have to worry about later in the game. Well, especially from Incineroar, because that will be able to knock out a Fighting Fury belted Darkrai. So even if he knocks me out, I'll immediately be able to knock out his Tauros, and then that's just a threat averted, and it will just be a 2-prize exchange for only 2 energy on my side and a DCE on his side. So he is going to Lysander. What's he Lysandering up? Okay, so he's bringing up my Darkrai-GX. I actually think that's... I mean, that's a good play to get most of my energy off board. Let's see what he grabs. Oh, it kicked me out. Huh. Kicked me out so I couldn't look at it. That's unfortunate. But what I am going to be able to do is actually immediately get Darkrai-GX back on board. Let's Juniper first, just because, I mean, I don't foresee any reason not to, but okay. So getting Darkrai-GX back on board, if I can hit this Max Elixir as well, I mean, I have the Dark Patch. If I can hit this Max Elixir, I'll actually have Darkrai-GX immediately powered up again, and there we go. So he knocked out my Darkrai-GX, and I'm actually going to put the energy on the... I decided to put it on the Night Spear Darkrai, just so everything has free retreat, plus I have the energy in my hand that I can just attach to Darkrai-GX next turn. And right now, I have 4 Darkrai's on board. I could play a 5th if I wanted to just be like, you know what, I'm throwing a ton of Darkrai's onto the field all at once, just to show off. I mean, obviously, only playing one Darkrai, only one Night Spear Darkrai is the play to make. But, I mean, it would just be kind of cool, because I do have the ability to put 4 Darkrai onto the board at once, which, I mean, that's just kind of awesome. He does hit me for 100 damage with the Energy Drive. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's a good play. It's a solid play. What I am going to do is go ahead and Dark Patch, get another energy onto my Darkrai-EX on board. Let's Ultra Ball, I mean, just kind of thin out some cards, I think. Get rid of Hoopa and Darkrai to grab... Let's grab Keldeo. Let's grab Keldeo, that way I have Rush Treat in case my opponent decides to play Hypnotoxic Laser or something like that. And, well, speak of the devil, I drew Hypnotoxic Laser, which I'm actually going to hold on to. If I can hit Max Elixir, that'd be perfect. Unfortunately, I do not, but, I mean, I have almost all... I only have 9 energy on board, so I still have, like, 2 to work with. But yeah, let's just go ahead and retreat into my undamaged Darkrai, knock out this Tapu Lele, and I think we're actually going to be able to pretty much win the game at this point. Because I do have enough energy on board. I guess, actually Incineroar could be a problem if he knocks out my Darkrai-GX. Because Dark End, all I have to do is just laser that, all I have to do is laser the Incineroar, and then I win the game with my GX attack. So that's going to be the play that I'm looking to go for at this point. He's going to be a Seeker. Is he going to Lysander up my Darkrai-GX? No, he's just going to Sycamore. So I think, yeah, I mean, I'm going to win if he decides to Sycamore, unless he has a Lysander in his hand. If he doesn't Lysander out my Darkrai-GX, then I'm going to be able to win the game. Simply, well, no matter what, because even if he Lysanders up Keldeo to try to stall, I do have the Guzma in my hand that I can just bring up Victini or Volcanion and knock it out after I switch Keldeo into something else. It does play the Turt down as well, so I mean, this actually turned into a pretty solid match. Like, I was really questioning it at first, and I mean, I know that it is very like, it ended up that it was I wasn't ever really in danger of losing the game. But it still ended up actually being a very solid match, despite the unconventional deck that my opponent is running. So, I mean, kudos to my opponent for making that deck work to the extent that it did. I mean, I was actually kind of on the ropes. Like, my opponent, with my two Darkrai's, like 120 HP left and 60 HP left. Like, my opponent could have potentially had the win on the board if I wasn't able to get what I did, and Darkrai-GX just came through. It's like, okay, I got knocked out. I'm immediately going to bring myself back and an energy, which turned out to be kind of essential for some of the damage late game. So that was a pretty solid first match, able to show off Darkrai-GX's ability twice and its GX attack, but let's go ahead and try to find another one with this deck. Alrighty, we have found another one against Kinet HJMT with, could be a mirror match. Could be a mirror match. I see the Dark and Psychic and Normal, which I can't think of any other type off the top of my head that would run those. So, yeah, this would actually be pretty cool. Unfortunately, we do mulligan, which means our opponent will be able to get an extra hand, or not an extra hand, that'd be broken. Yeah, draw an extra hand for every mulligan your opponent takes. You end up with like a 21 card opening hand. But here we go. Okay, so I only mulligan once. I start with Yveltal. I do love what they did with the mulligans, though. The fact that, like, you don't have to literally just sit there as they go through each mulligan. You see that you're going to have to mulligan, then it shows you how many times you mulligan and all that. And my opponent actually has to start with their Darkrai-GX, which is perfect, because in this deck, you don't want Darkrai-GX in the... you don't want Darkrai-GX to start. Like, you don't want to play it down onto the field. You want to bring it onto the field from the discard pile. So what I'm going to do is just play out my hand. I could have Ultra Balled for a Darkrai-GX, but I decided just to get a Darkrai-EX out. That way I can start doing something. And then this hand actually can work out pretty nicely, because what I can do, Ultra Ball, get rid of both of those, grab a Darkrai-EX. Actually, wait, I did that wrong. I should have Ultra Balled and grabbed the Darkrai-GX. That way I could discard that with the second Ultra Ball and then grab a Shaymin, but oh well. I mean, maybe I can hit an energy. No, I do not. So right now I have no energy on board. I'm really hoping to get the Battle Compressor. That way I can just throw Darkrai-GX into the discard pile, and unfortunately I draw it. So what I'm going to do, play the energy onto Yveltal and end my turn right there. So, I mean, at least I'm doing 30 damage to my opponent's Darkrai-GX. Yveltal is 1 energy from being powered up. And so, I mean, it's not ideal, but at the very least, I'll be able to do some damage to my opponent and just get some damage on the board. Yveltal isn't really an attacker that I would even want to have necessarily in this matchup, because Yveltal is for the fighting matchups, like I've said before. So, I mean, either way, we work with it, we go with it, we do what we have to with what we've got, and we move on. So I'm going to want to be careful kind of with my Hypnotoxic Lasers, because I want to save at least one to be able to pair with my GX attack. Like, if I just need to take one big knockout late game to win it, I want to have that Hypnotoxic Laser available to me in order to be able to do that. So I'm going to try to hold on to that. He does Sycamore. Sycamore's away some very solid stuff for me anyway. Like, it would suck to have to Sycamore all that away if it were my opponent. But for me, it's good that he has to Sycamore all that away. So my opponent doesn't look to be getting off to any better of a start than I did. I mean, at the very least, I've got a Darkrai down. I've got a couple Darkrai down. I've got an Yveltal with an energy. My opponent's Darkrai is poisoned, so damage will be racking up that way. And it's not, like, I'm not in a bad spot by any means. I'm not in a great spot, but I'm not in a bad spot. Well, then again, I guess it depends on how much my opponent is able to go off after their supporter, because if he's able to get a full setup and then start hitting for some significant damage, then I'm in a really bad spot. We do see the Hoopa come out, so that's bad. That means my opponent's probably going to grab Darkrai, and Shaymin. At least that would be my thought. Yep. Got the... Sorry, that was actually probably really loud. Grabs Dark Pulse Darkrai, Night Spear Darkrai, and the Shaymin. He's able to Dark Patch. So my opponent is starting to go off a little bit. I'm really, really hoping I can top deck a supporter at this point, so I'm going to be able to... I mean, I'll be able to attack regardless. It's just a matter of will I be able to do the attack that I want. And now he's going to be able to retreat this Darkrai out, which is not good. He's just going to go into Hoopa. I guess just let Hoopa take a hit, and then Fighting Fury. But okay, yep, that's understandable. And wow, those top decks are amazing. So what I'm going to do, energy up the Darkrai-EX, so that way if I draw that way all I need is a Max Elixir or a Dark Patch to be able to knock out the Hoopa. And okay, so once again I don't draw a supporter. I mean, okay, I can get an attack off of the Hoopa this turn. So yeah, let's get rid of the N, Guzma, and a Darkness Energy for Dark Patch. This is tricky. So I can play down. I can attack the Hoopa this turn. I really can if I want to. But do I really want to is the question. Because, I mean, I'm actually just going to leave it there. My opponent does wake up. I mean, this way he has to attach an energy to Hoopa to retreat it out. Like, okay, so if I had computer searched for a Dark Patch or something like that, it would not have accomplished anything. Dark Patching right there wouldn't have knocked out the Hoopa. Would have done 80 damage. Hoopa would be at 110, and I wouldn't be any closer to knocking out into taking 2 prizes. I mean, Hoopa, that's one of the last things that I really want to knock out. Like, Shaymin's going to be close enough anyway, and once again, I don't get any means to a supporter. So that's, I'll be honest, that's just straight unfortunate at this point. My opponent does Skyfield. That could potentially work out for me. So I get a Dark Patch, so at the very least I'll be able to attack. And if I have to attack the Hoopa, that's fine, but I did not want to waste my computer search on an attack that wasn't particularly significant in the overall scheme of the match. So what I'm going to do, Dark Patch onto my bench to Darkrai, onto this Darkrai, Choice Band it up, retreat into this Darkrai, I think play down that, and then let's Field Blower, get rid of the Choice Band and the Fighting Fury Belt. I'm going to keep the Sky Field for the time being. And then let's also restore this Darkrai-GX. I think that'll actually put me at the perfect damage to knock out this Hoopa. Yeah, because I'll be able to hit for exactly 130. I'm going to shut off my opponent's abilities for next turn. And yeah, so I'm definitely glad that I did not waste my computer search on a Dark Patch, because Hoopa would have just been knocked out anyway, and now I still have computer search available in my deck later should I want to use it. My opponent, yep, he knows what he's doing. He's running the Hypnotoxic Laser plus Darkrai-GX, so that Darkrai-GX is actually kind of a problem at this point. Yveltal can hit for 130. Dang it, I wish I didn't have that Fighting Fury Belt on it. Oh wait, no, that might be, if I can get Laser Bank, that's all I need to knock it out. But man, if my Yveltal had the Choice Band on it instead of the Fighting Fury Belt, I'd be able to knock out this Darkrai next turn, and he is just gonna dead end GX. Honestly, to knock out just a 2-energy Darkrai, I am okay with that. Like, I consider that a win on my end, because, like, that Darkrai, yeah, it could have been a problem. But really, overall, I think it worked out better for me. So what I'm going to do, obviously Dark Patch onto this Yveltal. And then retreat into Yveltal. And do I want a Laser? Because that'll do 130. I'll be 10 damage short. Dang it. Let's go ahead and Choice Band up, and you know what? Let's just try to bank on the sleep, see if he can get knocked out coming back into my turn. And then let's hit it with an Evil Ball. 10 damage short, so I might have to try to Night Spear later in the game to win. So right now I don't have much. I literally just have an Yveltal EX that's going to be Evil Balling. And this is actually looking pretty grim for me overall, I'm not going to lie. My opponent is going to Ultra Ball. Maybe try to grab... What's he going to try to grab? Did he just throw another Darkrai-GX into the discard pile? I think he did. Grabs another Darkrai-EX. So my opponent's actually running a much heavier line Well, I mean, I guess 3-1 as opposed to 2-2. So I mean, it's just a matter of how you do it. And then my opponent has computer search as well. So right now I'm in complete top deck mode. Why did my opponent forfeit? I am actually very, very confused as to why my opponent forfeited right there. If anything, I thought he was in a better spot because all he had to do was just attach another Darkness energy to his Darkrai-EX on the bench, retreat the Darkrai-GX out, and then it's 10 damage away from being knocked out, and then I have to invest into Night Spear to knock it out. But I mean, I guess we take those, question mark. Regardless, hey, 2 wins. This deck is very fun to use. It's one of my favorite decks of all time, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.